Dear President Lauder, Ronald, liebe Frau Knobloch, lieber Herr Graumann, distinguished guests, dear friends. First of all, I would like to welcome you with a shalom from the deepest of my heart. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction. If someone like Mr. Lauder calls you an art collector, it's the best. I mean, you made my day. Thank you so much about this. For several hundred years, Budapest was one of the most vibrant centers of Jewish life in Europe. The great synagogue in Dohanya Street is one of the most beautiful and impressive monuments of Jewish heritage in Europe. In March 1944, Adolf Eichmann set up his staff in the Hotel Majestic here in Budapest. Within few weeks, 500,000 Hungarian Jewish children, women, and men were deported and killed in Auschwitz. The memory of this darkest chapter of German history stays with us forever. We mourn the 6 million sons and daughters of the Jewish people that were murdered in the Shoah. We are profoundly grateful that today Jewish communities are once again an integral part of our societies in Germany and in Europe. I sincerely thank the World Jewish Congress and the Central Council of Jews in Germany for their commitment to this cause. I'm very honored and I'm grateful to be here today and address your plenary assembly. I thank you for the trust and the faith of the international Jewish community in Germany. The World Jewish Congress has always been at the forefront in protecting the memory of the Holocaust. Germany stands by your side. We must not forget, and we will not forget. It is our responsibility to preserve the memory of the Holocaust for future generations. We owe it to the victims, we owe it to the survivors, we owe it to ourselves. Yet our responsibility is not only about preserving the memory of the past, it is about shaping the future. We are firmly committed to protecting and nourishing Jewish life in our societies and to countering anti-Semitism across the globe. Anti-Semitism has no place neither in Berlin, nor in Budapest, nor anywhere else in Europe or in the world. The fight against anti-Semitism is not only about protecting Jewish citizens against such heinous attacks as took place last summer in Berlin against Rabbi Alter. We have to tackle the root causes of anti-Semitism. We have to invest in Holocaust education and research. We have to stand up against anti-Semitism when it comes along in a subtle way. Some people think, what do I have to do with this? That's not my business. I'm not member of this religion. I'm not a Jew. And I think we should answer them with a famous quote, which I learned very early, and I tried to translate this in English in a proper way. It is by Mr. Niemöller. Ladies and gentlemen, he said once, first they came for the communists. But I was not a communist, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the socialists and the trade unionists, but I was neither. So I did not speak out. Then they came for the Jews, but I was not a Jew. So I did not speak out. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak out for me. End of quote. So, ladies and gentlemen, when sometimes people are asking, is this my business? This is not my business. We have to answer them. Today, it might be a Jewish neighbor. Tomorrow, it is yourself. It is our common value, and it's what we have to protect. And it's much more than protecting a religion. And to memory our history. This fight is about preserving our common values. It is about standing up for democracy, for individual freedom, for human rights, and for human dignity. I think Europe is built on two pillars. It is democracy and the rule of law. 2 weeks ago, on April 21st, tens of thousands rallied here in Budapest for the so-called March of the Living. They stood up against any form of anti-Semitism as represented by the political formation Jobbik. They stood together to remember the victims of the Holocaust and to protest against anti-Semitism. These pictures to me send a message of hope that we will prevail. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, we belong to the same community of values. Europe is much more than a single market. It's much more than a common currency. Europe is first of all a community of values. And this is why I'm here to address, together with my good friend, the Foreign Minister from Hungary, these clear words to you, to this assembly. We are united and we will stand by you. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, of course, the bond between Germany and Israel derives from history. But it is much more. We belong to the same community of values. Once again, we should not forget that Israel is the only sustainable and functioning democracy in the Middle East. We belong to the same community of values, the community of Democrats. I want to share my very first impression with you. I remember, and I will never forget, my first visit in Israel. I was in my early 20s, and it was an unforgettable visit. Of course, you can imagine a student coming from Germany. It was not an easy mission and an easy visit for me. Go to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, and around the country for my first time in my life. I was a young student, and I traveled the country, and then I went to the hills of Galilee. Standing on top of Mount Tabor and overlooking the country, I realized just how small Israel is. And I came to understand what security means for Israel. Israel, with all modesty, Mr. Minister, is a relatively small country. And I always tell my people at home, just imagine when we looked to the tensions and to the attacks a bit more than 4 months ago. Just imagine if you would live in such a tiny little country the same of one of our lenders round about Hessen, in the center of our German Republic. If you would live there, and you would have to be aware that in the last 18 months, more than 1,500 missiles attacked you, your country, your people, and your families, how would you react? And I think we shouldn't underestimate that this is the reality in Israel, and I think this is also a clear line for all our discussions we have in the international community, ladies and gentlemen. Almost every Israeli citizen over the years have witnessed loss in his family or among his friends. 2 generations of Israeli citizens have lived through war. Security for Israel is something that cannot be taken for granted. Germany stands by its commitment to the security of Israel, and let me add, Israel has legitimate right to defend itself. We will continue to denounce any incitement against the State of Israel or its right to exist. We will stand up when Israel is threatened or its legitimacy called into questions. And we have made very clear we cannot and we will not accept an Iranian nuclear weapon. I understand that Israeli citizens view the Iranian nuclear program as an existential threat. But I have to add, it is a threat for the stability of the entire region. It could spark a nuclear arms race, and it endangers the global non-proliferation regime, a cornerstone of global security. Together with our partners, we are investing tremendous efforts into the negotiations with Iran. Our aim is simple. We want to ensure that the Iranian regime forsakes nuclear weapons. We do not underestimate the enormous difficulties, but a strong and united stance by the international community is the best way to convince Iran to meet its international obligations. We have proven resolve in adopting even stronger sanctions against the Iranian regime. These sanctions are showing results. Iran must now seriously engage to give the negotiation process a chance to succeed. And I have also to add, we will not accept talks for the sake of talks. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 2 years, we have witnessed extraordinary changes in the Arab world. Ordinary citizens sparked the movement for change. Mohamed Bouazizi in Tunisia. Young people on Cairo's Tahrir Square and in the streets of Benghazi. And peaceful protesters in Syria who were brutally shot by the Assad regime. 2 years on, there are many skeptics when it comes to transformation in the Arab world. Many fear that the new governments will not follow the path towards democracy and respect of universal values. At times, it seems that political and sectarian differences could outweigh the quest for democracy and economic reforms. And yet, young people in the Arab world are no more optimistic about their future than 2 years ago. The path is different for each and every country. We cannot force upon the Arab countries our understanding of how societies should function, but we can make a difference. Germany has concluded transformation partnerships with Tunisia and Egypt. We have committed ourselves to advance democracy and the rule of law. Our message to the people in the Arab world is straightforward. If you embark on the process of democratic and economic reforms, you can count on our support. So far, we have only witnessed the first few minutes of an historic hour. Change will take time. We need strategic patience. This is an historic opportunity to advance freedom, democracy, and universal human rights throughout the region. This is the historic opportunity for Israel to live among democracies, the historic opportunity to make peace among free people. In my view, the response for Israel to this change should be a renewed commitment for peace. Let me quote President Obama in his speech to the people of Israel on 21st of March of this year. He said, "Peace is the only path to true security." Ladies and gentlemen, nothing can guarantee Israel's long-term security better than peace with its neighbors and peace with the Palestinians. We strongly support renewed efforts towards a two-state solution. I know that a renewed commitment for the peace requires courage and entails hard choices for both sides. But time is running out. The longer the conflict takes, the harder it will become to reach a solution. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by thanking the World Jewish Congress for re-establishing ties between world Jewry and post-war Germany, for reaching out to my country over the abyss of the past, for relentlessly fighting to preserve the legacy of the Holocaust, and for being a constant reminder to all of us everywhere in the world to remain vigilant. Europe is based on our common values, and I repeat myself, but I think it's really in the core of our common interest. It is more than a single market. It is more than a common currency. Europe is a community of values, and every time our values are being challenged, we will raise our voice, we will speak out clearly. We are tolerant citizens. Tolerance is wise. Tolerance in the face of intolerance is historic foolishness. At this meeting here in Budapest, we stand together for our values, for tolerance, and against anti-Semitism. I thank you very much for this invitation.